So, hey Gaurav, really happy to have you here. It's been an exciting day for us. As you know, this is the first time when Pine Labs is doing an event of this kind. It is also the first time that we are actually going beyond our core product, which is in the offline space. We are now going in the online space with a product called Plural. We also were fortunate to host Shailendra in the morning. So, busy day for us. Welcome here.
Thanks a lot
Look,
for having me.
look, we are working hard to build a team culture. We are working hard to build an organization which is going to last for a long time. And you yourself, you have a big team which you have created. But second is you have a large number of teachers from different parts of the world. How do you manage that? What's been your trick?
I think I have had my fair share of learning experiences. I started my first company when I was 23. And for the first 6 months, I did all the mistakes that I could have possibly have. But I think coming from a content creator and a product builder background, you know that process of iterative journeys that you just keep experimenting until you get something right. For example, I started coding at an early age and I was creating content when I was in college. So and then that growth DNA, that you have to grow your views. I used to write on this platform called Blogspot Blogger, and you would write on a blog and then you would get views, etc. So I think it just became an iterative process. And over the years, I have evolved into a better manager, into a better leader. But more, like most importantly, I have been just lucky with the kind of team members and co-founders I have had. I think together we build a strong team, and we believe we are just getting started. And the impact that we have created so far is nothing compared to what we can create. And I love this line with that we all have a fiduciary responsibility to deliver basis our potential. And I mean, we at an academy just follow that to the heart.
Yeah. No, look, just a 30 plus kind of a founder. You have a long way to go. But honestly, what I find really interesting about what you've done is, you have truly built a business which is internet first and also for a new generation. So almost, I know this is going to sound very weird, but you have made the D2C of education. You have made the internet of education, and this is also for a completely new age bracket. How do you think about it? How do you solve for it? I find it very, very fascinating from outside.
It's a very interesting journey. This is not how we started to build things. We wanted to build a platform, sort of like a Twitch for education. We saw that when we were 25 years old founders, we saw that Twitch has been acquired for $1 billion by Amazon. So we thought that YouTube is not solving for a great education opportunity, and we can pick education and we can build better products. And then with time, we realized that the best teachers in test prep and the best students in test prep are with us. And that's when we launched a subscription model. It was one of a brainstorming session with Shailendra only, where we thought about this subscription model where people can pay and prepare for their goals, their examinations. And over the years, we have transformed into a platform play where we say that whatever your life goals are, whether it's getting good grades in school, whether it's cracking an exam, or it's getting a job, we will build the best products for that. And I think in the consumer space, we went from zero to $200 million ARR in 2.5 years. I think, yeah, and I think that's been the journey for us, where and one thing that worked for us is that we always did things fairly differently than what the norm was, and mostly our growth was product and content led.
The other part which I found very interesting about your business is, one is it is internet first, other is it is borderless, right? So people don't understand the complexities of running a borderless business. If you're trying to do a business in Bombay for another for a group of consumers in Bombay, I think it's easy, or even India is easy. But to go borderless is really, really complex. How was that experience?
It's tough. I mean, you need to see, India is not a homogeneous market. Each state is
Yeah,
like a different country. So
yeah.
you have to figure out what works for that state, what do users like, what kind of teachers do they like, what kind of content do they like, what is the language that is their preferred language. Um, but I think once you do so, one of the things that we interestingly did was, most advice I have gotten is about starting with one category or one state and cracking that. I have mostly not listened to that. I have always started with 4 or 5 states, or 4 or 5 categories, because the DNA of the organization then becomes more like a platform DNA rather than solving one problem. And today we have 50 categories, whereas even every single competitor of ours has combined probably 10 categories combined, if I combine all of the categories that they are present in.
Wow.
And that is one platform DNA we have built, where we said, I mean, yes, the conventional advice says do one thing at a time, but we are not trying to do conventional stuff. So why would we follow conventional advice? So I think
Wow,
that
this is interesting. You're talking about 50 categories. Here, we are happy to say that we've gone plural with one more new category, which is online. So, good to hear that you've gone to 50. But in that journey, how difficult has fintech been? How difficult has payments been? And what are the things that you have seen, which used to be a problem, and what have you seen as things which have evolved in the last 5, 6, 7 years time?
So our product has always been a high AOV product, in some
Right.
categories. For example, in some categories, people pay $50 for the whole year, whereas in some categories, people pay $100 per month, USD. And annually, sometimes it's even $1,000, $1,500 for a expensive subscription. So, we every time we introduced a new financing option, for example, um, when we started giving EMI options through credit cards, where people don't have to pay an interest, our revenues went up by 30-40%. When we opened more options for students on how they can pay, they can take a loan, they can apply for a loan, they can do other stuff. I think, um, and whether that's BNPL. So I think a lot of options have worked for us, but we have seen that uh, there is a lot of problem to be solved even today. I mean, some people still want to go to the bank and pay cash.
Yeah.
Um, and unlike US or unlike some other countries, where you'll find a credit card with everyone, in India that's not the case. So
Yeah.
so again, it depends fairly state by state, and but I think the easier we make these options for learners, the better it is for us. And I think a lot of problems have been solved in the last couple of years. Today there are a lot of products in the market.
I was hanging out with our friend Kunal, and Kunal was giving me, like usual, he was showing me about some new ideas. And one of the things he was telling me is saying, Amrish, you have such a large network of merchants across the country. Why don't you go and ask an academy to create a prepaid card, an academy prepaid card, and the first few months will be, let's say free, so that parents can come in and explore this. I'm not trying to make a sales pitch here. I guess what I'm trying to say is I get it in terms of how you need to distribute your products across India. And then
Yeah.
how do you see about the global markets? Because see, one of the things which we've seen in fintech is like education, fintech is going borderless. And you could very well have a teacher sitting in Turkey and a student being in Poland. And as a platform, you're still educating everybody. As you go global, have you seen other things which come up in the fintech side?
We have just started to go global through a product called Graphy, and
Right.
right
Yeah, I
now
saw
we
that.
are not. Uh, right now we are using the basic. payment gateways available, etc. We have not gone deep in those markets yet. So
Yeah.
possibly I might not have more comments on that.
Yeah, but Gaurav, again, this is a freewheeling conversation, right? One of the things what is happening is now fintechs are also building, and I'm not talking just India, right? I'm saying global fintechs are building for a platform play where money is being paid out to teachers or preparers of content across various markets, borderless, while receiving of money again is from different countries. So you should explore some of those. There's lots happening in that area, which could be of high interest for somebody like you.
Understood.
The other piece which I have found very interesting about the Unacademy strategy is really around how you've been making some very interesting acquisitions, both small and big. What's your thinking behind it? What's the growth strategy around these acquisitions that you've done?
See, there are multiple reasons why companies acquire, and you have also done a few acquisitions yourself, so you would know that either it's for us 0 to 1, or it's a unique capability that we don't have. So
Yeah.
some of our competitors acquire companies for revenue. We have never done that. It's either for a unique capability or a category. For example, PrepLadder was one of the best player in NEET PG, and we were not present in that category. And it was a fairly big category for us. And they brought a lot of capability of content on board. Similarly, Wi-Fi Study was doing well with content on YouTube. So that was a capability. But interestingly, one type of acquisition that has worked really well for us is acquiring small teams who could not find product market fit, who are fairly hungry to do stuff because they could not find PMF, but they want to build something, they want to do something.
Yeah.
And there, if we would acquire a 60-70% stake and still give an option for the founders or the team to grow, to be a part of the growth story, I think that's working really well for us. I think, for example, Relevel is one of such teams. The team was Tap Chief team, and they were doing well, but they were not breaking out. And once we acquired them and we started building Relevel, it's a 2-month-old product that will have 150,000 signups this month, and
Wow.
and we believe it's going to be one of the biggest products to come out of the Unacademy group. So I think this opportunity where you have great hungry teams with engineering built, with product built, with design built, with marketing built, and you have good founders who still have that hunger left in them. I think that's working really well for us to do 0 to 1 projects, because whether it's Innovator's Dilemma or all the books I have read or all the personal experiences, it's just faster to do 0 to 1 with autonomous teams rather than to do it with legacy teams, because legacy teams are already handling, let's say, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue scale, and they have bigger priorities, which is good, which is, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm just saying that sometimes you might just need to take a team of 15 people, give them $5 million
Yeah.
to play with, and they will create magic.
Yeah. But in your team also, one of the things which I have noticed about Unacademy is one of the smartest company when it comes to growth and growth hacking. When you make these acquisitions, how do you get all your growth engines working for these new companies, right? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to growth, you almost need to have a single philosophy. You need to have a single discipline. You need to have a structure to it. How have you gone about doing that, which is bringing in new businesses plus the interesting concept of growth? And you guys have used some unique, uh, the word is not trick, but the unique tech to drive your growth.
So I believe for every product that we are building, so we have this concept of a traction channel and a traction
Yeah.
product, and then you'll have the paid product. So
Yeah.
we have only built distribution-led businesses. We don't know how to build anything else. So we should try, but we believe that distribution-led businesses are great businesses because
Yeah.
your CAC is super low and you solve for distribution, etc. For example, at Unacademy, uh, we did content marketing really well. But for Relevel, we did influencer marketing really well. For Unacademy, we created our own content. For Relevel, we did influencer marketing. So I think I don't agree to the fact that you should have one growth strategy. I think for every product, it can be different. And then what we try to crack is a channel and a traction product, which is sort of like a distribution product. For Unacademy, it may be the free classes. For Relevel, it's a test that can help you get a job. And then we just try to bring traction to that one product and then figure out the conversion journey.
Yeah. Hey, look, let me take you into some unclear waters, right? So one of the things which everybody talks about is the fact that every business becomes a fintech at some point of time. And I know, for example, in your business, you are focused on the education sector. How have you thought about this whole space around fintech? As you go into distribution, fintech is also a lot about distribution. Have you ever thought about embedding fintech within your organization?
I have a to-do from 3 months back to figure out how to have a fintech division in my company, but I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah. Hey, look, Gaurav, it's a fairly easy space. If you can distribute well,
we
fintech
have
is
millions.
really
We have millions of free users. Like at this point, we have close to 700,000 paid users who have an active subscription with us.
Wow.
And we have few millions monthly active users across our various products. But I don't understand. I mean,
okay.
If I spend time on it and learn from you and Kunal, I think I'll be able to deep dive. But it's just then every founder has certain biases, and I think that's one of my biases to not go deep into it. But I should at some point.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So Gaurav, the obvious next question to ask is, how do you think of the offline space, and where do you see education going in the offline space?
I am a firm believer that the future is online education, and it's not because my companies are. It's the other way around. I am a firm believer in that. We are firm believers in that. That's why we are building products in that, not the other way around. The kind of problem of access that you can solve, affordability that you can solve, quality, consistency in quality that you can solve is just not possible through offline. We have a quota. We have an IIT JEE teacher teaching from Kota, the best teacher from the country, and 10,000 students attend the class at 1/5 the price point. And it's a live class. 10,000 students are attending. They are interacting. Like, you know, how you have an audience poll on KBC. So everyone is interacting with the teacher. And people are getting motivated. The tricks that the teacher is using, or the way the teacher is telling you to study, it's a knowledge arbitrage. Until now, you had to go to Kota. You had to pay a lot of money to get that access to knowledge. And we are solving for that. So I think, yes, social motivation, peer-to-peer learning, these are the things offline does better. But I'm very, very confident that online will solve for these things also. And it's just the access and the consistency in quality. Like the biggest offline institute in the country has 200,000 paid students every year. We have around 700,000. And the institutes are probably 30 years old. We are 2.5 years old since we launched this model. So I am see, you might need offline for awareness. So we might open an offline store or an offline experience center where the parent would come and do a counseling session with one of our counselors to understand. Because if you want to change the behavior, you have to give a high touch experience in terms of the sales experience. And then maybe you have somebody from Pine Lab sitting there, or you have somebody from Bajaj Finserv sitting there, and you have a counselor. You provide all kinds of help. But eventually, what you need to solve for is a great online experience, which replaces your tuition center, your coaching center, and your college. We also believe, firm believers, that except the top 3% colleges, most colleges do a shitty job when it comes to education and placements. And we believe that if we disrupt these three spaces, the impact that is going to be created is huge.
Yeah, no, look, I'm a big believer that colleges is to make friends and see the world, explore the world, rather than be in a classroom and study in a classroom. So big believer on that.
But you don't
But the
have to
other
pay
piece
200.
which
You should not be paying $200,000 to explore the world.
I agree. Totally agree. But the other thing what you said was very interesting for me, right? Which is 10,000 students all joining into your class at one point of time. See, there's one thing which people have not realized, which has changed in India over the last 5 years from a fintech point of view, is we've actually been able to take digital payments into a completely new segment of consumers, and these segment of consumers can now use their UPI handles or their cards to make purchases, and even small value purchases. On these 10,000 students which you're talking about, of course there will be package classes for 10, 20, or subject wise what it would be. But do you also create sachets which could be, small 500 rupees, 600 rupee classes? Have you thought about trying to do sachets of education and then obviously hooking on the consumer for a longer period of time?
So we have a very interesting model where for every subscription we have a 1 month subscription also, and we are the only
Yeah.
edtech player which allows a 1 month subscription. But what that
Nice.
does is that the 1 month subscription lets you try out the product,
Yeah.
and we are seeing healthy conversions from 1 month to longer duration subscription models. Let's say 12 or 24 months, which is the only option provided by other players. So I
Yeah.
agree with your point that once somebody pays, let's say, 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees for a month instead of paying a lakh, and then they try the product, I think that's a good lever.
Okay. So look, I'm now going to go into a little bit of a fun section. We talked a lot about an academy, but let me take you into areas which is a little bit outside. So I know that you sponsored cricket some time back, and by the way, I have to tell you that ad was fantastic. I just love that ad campaign that you were running. But who's your favorite cricketer?
Uh, I am not a fan of cricket. I have not seen cricket. I have not seen cricket in the last 20 years. And
Wow.
I think my partner and chief marketing officer, Karan, does a great job. I
Yeah.
think cricket is a great media opportunity to sponsor stuff.
Yeah.
When I was young, I liked Sachin a lot, but
Yeah.
I have really not seen cricket in the last 20 years. Though I was in London a couple of weeks back, and my co-founder is a fan of my co-founder Roman is a fan of cricket. So we went to
Yeah.
this test match at Oval, where possibly I think India won after 50 years, but
Yeah. Wow.
I had no idea what was happening, except that we were winning.
Okay. The second one on that, if not for EdTech, what would you like to do as an entrepreneur or as a startup founder?
I would be building some sort of a platform. I think I'm a fan of platform plays. Maybe I always had this idea that I wanted to build a video version of Quora, or a much better LinkedIn, where it's a platform play. So I've been a fan of platform businesses, and if it was not, and we are trying to build an academy also as an edtech platform. But if I was not in edtech, I would possibly be building a consumer platform.
Okay, that's very interesting. And then my last question for the day for you, Gaurav. And I've told this to you a few times, right? I find your thinking to be very very interesting. You have a different take on various things, and you're just barely past 30. Uh, I shudder to think what it would be when you actually get to the end of the 30s. So, what lies ahead for an academy when an academy grows up? What are you really dreaming of?
I think we have been fairly lucky with the opportunity. When we started building an education, we didn't know how big it can be. Today, I believe that if we are not able to build $100 billion company in the next, let's say, 8 to 10 years, I think we would have failed. Because I believe that the opportunity is there. I believe that we have the right team, the right products. It's about now sequencing and scaling and compounding. I think that's sort of like a long-term goal. And then the other things that we need to do is that apart from test prep, we also need to crack 2 or 3 other markets where we have a product which is 10x better than anybody else out there, and we have a way to acquire users which is 10x cheaper than anybody else out there. It all boils down to just product and marketing.
That's great to hear. It's also great to know that we are plural in our thinking, that there is an opportunity to create $100 billion fintech and $100 billion edtech company in India. On that note, Gaurav, I'm going to thank you for coming by, dropping by, giving us a bit of your time. I guess we are just happy to host you here today. Thanks for all that you do.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.